A seismic shift just rocked the deep state's foundation. President Trump and Elon Musk have joined forces to demand RICO charges against George Soros and his son Alex for financing violent protests across America. Reports show that paid protester requests surged 400% since Trump took office, with over $20 million in dark money flooding D.C. agitator groups. Trump declared, "We won't let these lunatics tear America apart anymore," and the evidence is overwhelming. Protesters literally wearing Soros-funded NGO jackets, coordinated break stations, and organized chaos designed to destabilize our republic. Biden gave Soros the Medal of Freedom. Trump wants to give him a perp walk. The battle lines are drawn, so keep on watching. Now, the Soros machine that's funded riots across America is finally facing accountability. And just like those violent protests cause damage to our communities, joint pain damages your quality of life. You're getting older. I'm getting older. It's unavoidable. And until science figures out how to age in reverse, there's something that we all face: joint pain. You've probably tried supplements promising miracles, but most just don't work. And there's only one thing that has stood the test of time. It's turmeric. And here's what you probably don't know. Standard turmeric barely gets absorbed by your body. Dr. Josh Levitt developed Golden Revive Plus using BCM95 curcumin, which absorbs 200 times better than regular turmeric, combined with boswellia and magnesium and bromelain. It's a complete joint restoration system. So visit goldenrevive.com/NNN, link down below, to start moving pain-free again. Now, this just in. President Trump has stated George Soros and his radical left son should be charged with RICO because of their support for violent protests. Listen to this.
Never, Trump said, and I quote, "We're not going to allow these lunatics to rip apart America anymore, never giving it so much as a chance to breathe and to be free. Soros and his group of psychopaths have caused great damage to our country." Trump said,
RICO charges coming. Trump calls for Democrat mega donor George Soros to be charged for supporting violent protests. The headlines are all coming in. President Trump calls for criminal investigation into billionaire philanthropist George Soros and his son Alex, alleging they fund violent protests. A Soros spokesperson calls the accusations outrageous and false. Of course they would.
The two should be. President Trump is calling for a criminal investigation into billionaire philanthropist George Soros and his son Alex. The president posting on social media the two should be charged with RICO, racketeering, for their alleged involvement with funding violent protests across the country. A Soros spokesperson is calling the accusations outrageous and false. The Justice Department is not commenting on a potential probe, but Fox is told agency leadership is taking the president's post seriously. President Trump.
The agency is taking the president's post seriously. Here's what President Trump said. George Soros and his wonderful radical left son should be charged with RICO because of their support of violent protests and much more all throughout the United States of America. We're not going to allow these lunatics to rip apart America anymore, never giving it so much as a chance to breathe and be free. Soros and his group of psychopaths have caused great damage to our country. That includes his crazy West Coast friends. Be careful. We're watching you. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And here's a clip that's attached. Of course, we've seen these time and time again. Remember the great summer of love? Well, police dismantling a UCLA encampment move in to arrest protesters. Remember when they all took over the campuses?
Layer and layer.
Cheap tents. I mean, these are industrial type of tents.
Yeah, you know.
Did you hear what he noticed? He said, these are industrial type tents. Isn't it strange how all of the hardware that these, grassroots activists carry around with them, they're all same make and model? Yeah, they buy them in bulk, you see. They don't, it's not like these activists are going to Costco and they're picking these things up. All right, you've got these radical groups funded by Soros organizations, and they're buying them in bulk, and then they're shipping them across the country to all these agitators.
I did stories about, there's so much money behind this. You're just looking at a tip of the iceberg.
That's right.
That kept these protests alive, across the country.
William,
and,
can you
that
go
money
over?
Isn't going away.
Right. Tell us the program. You did a great piece.
He said there's so much money behind these protests to keep them going across the country. See, real grassroots protests, it's like mom and pop on the street corner with hand-painted signs. Okay? They go and do a protest on a Saturday afternoon. because they're still working a 9 to 5, right? The only free time they have is a Saturday or a Sunday. But somehow these protesters can go for days and weeks on end because they're given a constant supply of support.
On all the funding, the Rockefellers, the Ford Foundation, the different groups that funded all this. Could you talk about it?
Yeah, so we started, where's the money coming from for the Students for Justice in Palestine and the committee, the U.S. Committee for Palestine, these kind of things. And what you find is layer and layer upon foundations, shell companies, very difficult to trace because unlike a 501c3 where there is a paper trail to be able to see where the money came from, where it goes, that doesn't exist. There's dark money around here. There's 50, 60, 70 foundations that give money to the Tides Foundation. I don't want to get too deep into this.
That's Soros.
Then they filter out the money. Right, well, there's the Open Society, and Soros gave about $700,000, and I believe the Rockefeller Brothers Fund was $500,000 over the last 3 years to some of these foundations that funnel money out to groups like this. But anyways, go ahead.
But anyways, remember USAID? How much of that USAID money was funneled down to these paid protesters? We have this from Sagenza Eterna on X. The Soros enterprise then brought its destabilization playbook to America during the 2014 Ferguson unrest. OSF, Open Society Foundation, funnels $33 million to a network of civil rights groups, including the key on-the-ground organizers of the protests that devolved into riots. The Organization for Black Struggle, Missourians Organizing for Reform and Empowerment, called MORE. Businesses were looted and burned, and American City was torn apart. This is funding of domestic terror. Right here. You can see it. Trump calling for, finally, an investigation into the Soros organization. Here we have more. Paid protester requests have surged 400% since Trump was inaugurated as president. Reports show dark money groups like those that the Soros family funds have dumped over $20 million into different protest groups in Washington, D.C. Why was this allowed to happen?
Organizing demonstrators feel the same about federal law enforcement. But the fury may not be fully organic. Fox News has learned that paid protester requests have increased 400% since President Trump announced the federal takeover of D.C.'s police department. The New York Post reports that high-dollar donors like George Soros have pumped more than $20 million into protest groups currently organizing demonstrations in the district.
Why are you here? You're trying to arrest innocent people?
According to the White House, 45 arrests were made last night for reasons including assault, drug distribution, and illegal firearms. 29 illegal immigrants were also apprehended. The district's police chief, Pamela Smith, announcing today that local police will begin sharing information on undocumented individuals with immigration agents.
Washington, D.C. is at its worst point, and it will soon.
Feel the same.
Now think about this. It's one thing to have a peaceful protest. I'm all for it. I have myself been in the streets with passing out DVDs and shouting on a blowhorn. Okay? Because that is my core. I want justice for America. Because I see what's going on and I see that it needs to be revealed. But I don't go around, or when I was actually in the streets, I didn't go around smashing windows and destroying property and attacking police officers. So while they can say, I'm sure this is going to be their defense, oh, we're just supporting these nonprofit groups who do peaceful protests. But they never talk about the subgroups, the agitators who are embedded within these groups that also receive the money. So by default, they're also funding the terrorism that breaks out in these so-called peaceful protests, right? That's how it works. We've seen it time and time again. Trump and Elon Musk both are asserting that Soros should be charged with RICO crimes for financing violent protests in America. George Soros set up a foundation in Ukraine designed to usurp the government and employ a color revolution where paid violent protesters work to destabilize a region and demand regime change. This is the playbook they use continually. If you do not prosecute the head of the snake, they will continue to implement these tactics ad nauseum until it stops working or they are shut down for good. Many of the world's issues can be traced back to George Soros and his dark money, including the Russia-Ukraine war. Check this out.
George Soros, pleasure to have you on.
Same here.
First on Ukraine, one of the things that many people recognized about you was that you, during the revolutions of 1989, funded a lot of dissident activity, civil society groups in Eastern Europe, in Poland, the Czech Republic. Are you doing similar things in Ukraine?
Well, I set up a foundation in Ukraine before Ukraine became independent of Russia. And the foundation has been functioning ever since. And it played an important part in events now.
Do you think Ukraine will be able to assert a kind of independence from Russia and an alignment with the West, not a specific alignment as in NATO, but a kind of orientation toward the West, or will the Russians always stop them?
No, Putin will try to destabilize Ukraine. The foundation has been functioning ever since, and it played an important part in events now.
George Soros, pleasure to have you on.
That's Soros' own words, admitting that he funds the destabilization of different regions and mentioning Ukraine specifically right there. God J.B. Pricker, one of my favorite follows on X, Pritzker equals Soros. Now, it's a parody account, often trying to speak in the voice of J.B. Pritzker in a satirical way. I take great offense to Donald Trump attacking another great family, my beloved Soros family. The Pritzker and Soros families have the same goals. Just note we are more wealthy. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Of course, a satirical post. But here you can see Pritzker with Soros's son and more with Soros's son there. Trump says that George Soros and his son should be hit with RICO charges for supporting violent protests. What happens if Soros-funded operations get violent and engage in domestic terrorism? What happens if mayors, police chiefs don't enforce the law? That's exactly what I just said. All right? You have subgroups within these groups that Soros is funding. The hammer is being prepped to drop hard. Elon Musk says he stands with President Trump in calling for the arrest of George Soros. Benny Johnson, President Trump calling for the George Soros and radical left son Alex to be hit with RICO charges. So everybody's talking about this right now. Here is the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban exposing George Soros' 2015 plan to deliberately flood the EU with at least 1 million asylum seekers annually. President Trump is now officially taking action against George Soros for funding violent riots in the United States. Orban was right. Listen to this.
I do remember how Mr. George Soros published his plan in English in a Project Syndicate publication. It was done 2015, September 26th. And he published a plan. He said that he is I'm quoting, he write the 6 components of my comprehensive plan. I just quote 2 or 3 points of that. First is, he said very clearly, 2015, that, quoting again, EU has to accept at least 1 million asylum seekers annually. That was the first point. Second, he said, adequate financing is critical. And he proposed to issue long-term euro bonds for financing the migration crisis and the migrants' social and welfare taking care when they arrive to the European Union. And another point which is very important for Hungary, which is involving the territory of Hungary directly into this program, he said that, quoting them, safe channels must be established for asylum seekers, starting with getting them from Greece and Italy to their destination countries, which means to bring them to Greece, to Hungary, and then have them to go to Austria. So don't forget that what we are speaking about is not an accidental stories, not a bulk of 10 years of accidental stories. It's a plan which is going on. It was written. It was published. It's known. So we are fighting again an organized gang called Empire of George Soros, NGOs, who are just supporting everybody who is transgressing our legal system and our regulation. and financing illegal activity against our nation. So this is why the story is not just about migration, but it's about how this European Union is working and how George Soros was able to captive the main positions inside many institutions of European Union, buying out MPs and other leaders, and in order to execute the plan which is written, and it's against all the Christian and nation-based political forces. It's against us. It's about how to change Europe and how to eliminate and push aside all the Christian, conservative, national-based political leaders and voters from the European Union decision-making bodies. So this is the migration about, not just about migration. I do remember how Mr.
And you can see that happen here in the United States. Remember, we had for 4 years a wide open border. Sounds like that playbook was easily applied here. Continuing with our investigation into this, here we have more RVG Truth. Wall Street Apes writes, Trump officially calls for Soros and Alexander Soros to be charged with racketeering for funding street protesters in America. Flashback, Los Angeles ICE protesters literally filmed wearing the jackets of an NGO funded by George Soros. They also had break stations set up by another NGO also funded by George Soros. Let's take a look at this.
It's okay. Sir, would you like to say anything on camera? Would you like to do a little quick interview? Huh?
I know who you are. You're Taylor Kramer.
Yes, I am.
A lot of what you say are lies.
Okay, well, you like to talk about stop touching me. Yeah, she's hitting me, so that's not very respectful. But I'm just right here. I'm allowed to be here. I'm just trying to. Would you like to do an interview?
No.
Huh? Why not? I don't want to. It's okay.
It's okay, man. It's full of shit.
Oh, it's full of shit, huh?
Yeah.
What is that? The evidence, the receipts, the sidewalk school. The sidewalk school.
And so I founded the Asylum Seeker Network of Support as an effort to fight policy, U.S. policy. Then that sort of evolved to providing or creating programs.
Also among us, people who are not very friendly. So the gentleman right here, because he's here to what he can get from us. But we are here standing as a community as one.
Okay,
why are you taking pictures of children?
Because they have trans flags, and they were just at a table with a bunch of condoms and stuff for sex, which is inappropriate. It is, right? It's not inappropriate for, what, like a 6-year-old? Huh? It's a public park. Hey, stop touching me, dude. Stop stepping on me.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Huh?
I didn't mean to, sorry.
No, you did. So stop it. Stop touching me.
In our space.
Huh?
This is our space. You're not welcome in this space.
It's a public park. Okay, so now you're assaulting me too. Pushing me.
Oh, my bad.
Why'd you hit me?
I didn't.
Yes, you did. You just kicked me.
I was an accident, bro.
So why your parents would allow you to be violent like that? I don't think that's right.
I wasn't violent. What are you on about, bro? Get out of business. How about you give us some personal space and nobody will touch you?
Okay, personal space, and you guys keep backing into me.
What are you doing in a place?
You're not going to gaslight me like that. It's just not going to work, dude.
Creating a safe space.
That's crazy. Whoa, 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 whoa! You got me. You just got it on camera, huh? Call the police, man. This is bullshit.
To remind you that we practice nonviolence, so please do not engage.
So why were they throwing coffee at me? I'm just here to, ma'am, you know, I'm just here to cover the event. I'm not doing anything to anybody.
We want to remind you that we practice nonviolence, do not engage.
McAllen, Texas. Another example of Soros agitators harassing someone there who's peacefully just documenting what they're doing. See, they don't like it when the cameras are facing on them. And remember this, Joe Biden giving Soros the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Now President is going to hit Soros with RICO. What a difference one election can make.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to George Soros. Born into a Jewish family in Hungary, George Soros escaped Nazi occupation to build a life of freedom for himself and countless others around the world. Educated in England, he settled in America as he became an investor and philanthropist, supporting key pillars of open societies, rights and justice, equity and equality, freedom now and in the future. His inspiring generosity reminds us all of our capacity and our obligation to stand up to the abuse of power and to be guardians of democracy and all people yearning to be free.
And you can see there's his son, Alex, there accepting it on his behalf because, you know, he's probably just not able. That guy is old, not even able to go to the White House to accept this award. Now, President Trump is demanding the public arrest of George Soros and his son, accusing them of RICO, branding them and him and his family psychopathic, vowed he will never let them tear America apart. So this is only the beginning, folks. One more domino set to fall. George Soros, someone who's done so much damage to this country, finally about to face justice. If you got value from this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is next. So the gloves are off. For decades, Soros operated with impunity, flooding our streets with paid agitators while hiding behind nonprofit shields. Now Trump and Musk are exposing the whole racket: protesters in Soros-branded gear, coordinated supply stations, dark money trails leading straight back to his organizations. This is not free speech, it's organized crime. RICO laws were designed exactly for this, taking down criminal enterprises that operate through seemingly legitimate fronts. Viktor Orban warned us about Soros' plan to flood the West with migrants. Ukraine showed us his color revolution playbook. And now that same destabilization strategy is deployed here at home. The establishment media will scream about attacking a philanthropist, but Americans see through the charade. So here's the question. Should Soros organizations be completely banned from operating in America like they are in other countries? Let us know in the comments. And you can show your support for a real organization, Next News Network. Grab your gear at the link down below.